episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to this very special episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime, special for a few reasons. I've been whining to everyone for a bunch of days, saying I feel horrible. Everyone's like, get over it, loser. Everyone's like, the COE is sick of you. And today, I got my positive COVID test back. I've never sweated the way that I have sweated the last 2 nights. Literally, it's a good thing the COE is a strong sleeper because the bed was transformed into a water bed. She could have drowned from the amount of sweat that came out of my body. Sarah Ford does not like the description, but that's pretty much what happened.
I feel you. No, get it out. Get it out. Get it out.
Oh, so it's been brutal. But being the man that never complains, me, the man who always toughs it out, here I am. This is a big day. I did not want to miss this, especially because we had these 3 lovely women booked. But I am coming to you from the home studio. I told Carm, I said, I'm going to do the first ever STS in bed, and she lost her mind. She's like, if you want to lose your podcast and never have anyone watch you again, do it from bed. No idiot ever does it. But I was close, and I may end up there before the show's over. I don't think the 3 of these women would mind, but we'll see where I end up. But for the most part, I told the Amy's and Sarah Ford, I barely know my own name, that if I am able to say hello, that they could carry the rest of this show, no doubt. So a monumental day. I don't know what the hell is going on in the Palmetto State. It's an embarrassment. No offense to the world, I think, what's going on there. And I'd like you guys to weigh in, at least to the justice system there. But Judge Toal, who I like and takes absolutely no crap, including from Dick Harpootlian, basically told him to sit his ass down today, said there is no new murder trial for Alex Murdaugh. That is the headline, and we'll dig right into it. In this fog of COVID, I have prepared some notes, but Amy Zimmercheck, how dare me, in the bottom right-hand corner, she is an owner in the firm AJZ Law. All you have to know about her, she's an amazing criminal defense attorney, 10 not guilties on felony cases, including murder and rape, not guilties on murder and rape since 2009. Then you've got Amy Lawrence, lovely, love the hair, but what do you call that? Is that like a hair, what do you call that? A ribbon, a bow?
Headband.
Headband. My daughters wear headbands and they would love it. I told you I'm in the fog of COVID, but I knew it was something in your hair. I knew that. And Amy Lawrence Lovely is with the Lovely Law Firm. And last but not least, we've got Sarah Ford, who I apologize to because in the thumbnail, she is blonde, but in real life, a beautiful shade of almost like auburnish, brownish red, but a very lovely shade of whatever it is. And she is, much more importantly, the legal director at the South Carolina Victims Assistance Network since 2017, and she's a former South Carolina prosecutor, and that is where we're at. Just to kind of get into it, Amy Lawrence Lovely, since you're always so low-key and don't use any flowery language, what are your thoughts today? We'll go clockwise here, starting here, like the 1 o'clock position here. We'll start with you. What did you make of this? Obviously, a no-go for Alex Murdaugh with another murder trial, but what about all the antics that went on between all of that?
I am a big ball of emotion about this whole thing. I mean, I think we all know that he is guilty of murder. But what we heard today, and the testimony of what happened behind the scenes in this trial is like so upsetting. Like, it makes my little lawyer heart just like drop and feel sick, because after hearing all the testimony of what happened in this case, hearing from that jury who said, yeah, it did affect my decision. And to have we had Becky Hill perjure herself over and over and over again. And all of that stuff wasn't enough to get a new trial. And Justice Toal came back very quickly and read this like prepared statement of how she was going to rule. And that was so disheartening, because if a rich white lawyer can't get a fair trial in South Carolina, then that means nobody can. Nobody can. And that's the part that really gets me, because it really bothered me watching Craig Waters and John Meters, because aren't we all supposed to be wanting like equal justice, right? We don't want someone tipping the scales. We shouldn't anyway. That's not what this game is supposed to look like. We're all supposed to want, fairness. I mean, this is what we're all fighting for. And I mean, if I'd been that prosecutor, I'd say, look, we'll convict him again. But after hearing his testimony, I mean, how do you even argue with perjury and giving rides home to jurors and all these other things? It's just more than I can take. And I think today was, and I think this proves how fucking over the South Carolina judiciary is with the Murdaughs, right? They're done. They're not just done, they're D-U-N, done. And this was like the final straw when they weren't willing to give a new trial after all of that testimony. Then it just wasn't going to happen. They were done. Their mind was made up before this even happened.
Sarah Ford, a lot of people are tuning in, and not everyone lives in South Carolina like you three intelligent women. And they're wondering, people see bits and headlines, and they see Alex Murdaugh in the headlines all the time. I mean, I used to do that before I was covering this the way I was. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? But what is there a precedent for what happened today? I mean, do you recall a time recently where we saw something of this magnitude, that courtroom filled up the way it was with this former South Carolina Supreme Court Justice, Judge Toal, who, by the way, I like her, man. She's got personality, and she takes no crap. But is there a real precedent for what we saw, and what was?
No.
If you can just kind of explain to the people what was supposed to happen here. It was a mini trial, correct?
So it was an evidentiary hearing. So the defense made a motion for a new trial based on allegations that the clerk of court, Becky Hill, improperly influenced the jury. It made comments to the jury and it improperly influenced them. So this hearing today was all about, well, did she make these comments to the jurors, and did it improperly influence their verdict? And that's what was heard today. And I think what was really interesting is that this is very unusual. I don't know if either of the Amy's have ever seen anything like this before, but just to have an evidentiary hearing like this was very unusual. There were some issues. Obviously the defense wanted to use a different standard of review than actually what Justice Toal went with, the Green case, the South Carolina case. But ultimately what she determined was the standard she was going to use to determine if Alex Murdaugh were to get a new trial. Were these comments made, and did they actually influence the jury to reach the verdict because of the comments that the clerk actually made to them? And she determined that, there were possibly comments made, that there was one juror Z, today that spoke. I was watching it. It seemed like she did not quite understand exactly what was happening, because she said, yes, I was influenced by what Becky Hill said. And then she stood by her affidavit, which said that she was influenced by the jurors, which is totally okay. That's called deliberation. Ultimately, the other 11 jurors did not find that, they were improperly influenced, and their verdict was influenced by Becky Hill's comments. I will say, adore Amy Lawrence Lovely, and she knows that she's my eighth sister.
Ride or die.
But I totally disagree with what she said. I mean, I think that what happened today shows that it's more about digging in. What does the law say? What can we actually prove? What happened? Are people credible? Becky Hill, not credible at all. Totally like Yahoo. That was crazy. But Did it influence the jurors' verdict? I think not, and I think the right result happened today.
I will never get over this. Miss Little Bones catching alive on our road trip from the Gold Coast to Sydney, and they're listening to us four in Australia right now. It's a weird world that we live in. That is for damn sure. Amy Zimmercheck, someone is already asking, can Dick Harpootlian and company appeal this decision by the former Supreme Court justice? And the answer is yes, right? What is gonna happen now that Judge Jean Toal said, not so fast, no new trial? What's gonna happen now?
So it goes through what we call an interlocutory appeal process. So basically, it's interlocutory because it's happening within the actual appeal that's already pending. So that appeal still stays on in hiatus right now. So it is just sitting set aside. Nothing is happening. You know, typically there are timelines and deadlines that you have to follow in appeals that are now set aside until this issue is fully argued. And quite honestly, I see this issue going all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, not just of South Carolina. It's tough because she Justice Toal makes these pretty. I mean, when she started to cross-examine Becky, I knew Becky was in for it because she just flat out just called her a liar right there in front of everybody. She said it very much more tactfully, as in, and that wasn't the truth, was it? And then for her to come out in her holding, which is a pretty big deal for a judge in general, much less the former Supreme Court, the first female Supreme Court justice, and for her to say that she did not find the clerk of court credible, I think was a big. I mean, that was something big. But then to turn around and say, but regardless, I'm still gonna find this way. Honestly, it's a little perplexing. I agree that this case is messy, but I think that we've just made it messier. I think any question about the sanctity of the jury's verdict should be taken not just with a grain of salt. It should be taken incredibly seriously. And her ruling, it troubles me because I don't know that was the right standard, and I don't. So I think that what we're going to get out of this one way or another is maybe some answers, because I don't think that we have seen something to this magnitude. And if we have, I mean, quite honestly, I've seen jurors get held in contempt of court for not following their duties. I've seen cases get overturned because of jurors and things like that. So that part is not unusual, but I was very surprised, regardless of the magnitude of this case. If you strip all that away and just look at the very basic rights, it leaves me with great concern that a justice or a judge in this sense can say that the person who was testifying that they did or didn't do these things was not credible, and you have at least one juror saying it affected me. But more troubling, even so, I think, were the two other jurors that said that there was a lot of, that there was talking and that they did hear it and they did see it, which just leads me to call into question. Sure, it's easy to say Juror Z was off her chain and she was confused and but when you get these other two jurors that say, no, we saw this behavior too. Now, did it affect us? No, but just a combination of all of those things really makes it concerning for people who are in the trial world.
Well, Amy, one of the things that really, I mean, we have Jersey, and everybody's like, she's off the chain. Well, I only heard her say about 10 sentences, and she said it affected her decision and how she voted on the verdict. And for me, that's enough. And two things can be true at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. You could be swayed by the jurors, the other jurors, and you can be swayed by the clerk of court saying inappropriate things.
But you can't also say, did you find your verdict based on the evidence, which they asked, and she said yes. So it's like all of those things can't be true. She kept saying yes, yes.
When you have someone who probably doesn't have more than a high school education, right? I don't know. But if I guess, I mean, we're dealing with a very rural community, and they just don't know what all that means. They just don't know what all that means. But they do know. But I think that we do know when someone says, when I made a decision, this is what helped me make that decision. And if that played into a part of any of it, then it's out. And so by doing this today, we've given a license that people can tamper with juries, and it's okay. State actors can tamper with juries.
But that's not what happened. Like, that is
giving a juror a right call.
Yeah, she did so well. Yeah. I hope it does not devolve into that. And we'll let Sarah and Amy. I'm gonna have to break up the cage match in a moment. But we're gonna break down the kind of the details of the day. I have an hour by hour breakdown. Believe it or not, that's what you do when you're bored with COVID. But big shout out to Dwayne Harris, new member, new family member here at SGS Nation, but one of the more generous guys, always gifting memberships. It was just his birthday, and now look at this, a super chat. I never knew the difference between a super sticker and a super chat till they made fun of me, but a chat has words. Simple as that. Thank you to that. And look at this. Before we get going, KO Las Vegas, knocking it out because she ordered. I don't think I've had the three of you on since my book. My book is now out for pre-order. And since I brought it up today, and I'm allowed to because I'm sick, so I can actually bring it up. But there it is. My book is available for pre-order. And Amy's, plural, and Sarah, I do expect the three of you to pre-order this book. Look at you. Look at you. Look at you, Amy. Right off of Amazon. Amy's. I've waited for someone to do what Amy's doing to QR code that. But here's a funny story. I went, and by the way, we also have a new channel, Best Trials. We're doing the Michelle Traconis trial. We dedicated an entire channel just to trials. But I went on a podcast yesterday. Joe Jackalone, a friend of mine, he has his own podcast, and he asked Carm to come on, and we were promoting the book, and she gave 10 reasons why you should not buy the book. And it was not out of design. She just went on there and said, oh, it's not worth buying. Don't buy it, and gave 10 reasons. So my new strategy on this future book tour is to bring Carm along, a therapist, and give all the reasons why you should not buy the book, and maybe the reverse psychology will work. So that is my story of the day. But starting off at 10:10 a.m. this morning, Judge Toal comes out. She reassures the jury, the jurors, all of them, hey, you guys did nothing wrong. She had to interview one of them on Friday because there was a scheduling conflict. So she was really speaking to the rest of them today. And she explained that she gave them all these letters. And of course, Juror Z is the one that was in question because they have numbers normally. But now she's like, I'm giving you a letter to maintain your anonymity. Of course, there was some weird noise going back and forth. So in typical South Carolina, who'd we lose? We lost Sarah Ford. She'll come back on. But in typical South Carolina fashion, there was some weird feedback. So the judge, who's 80, said that South Carolina always has the funkiest sound system, got a big laugh. But Amy Zimmercheck, your friend Eric Bland's name came up. Dick Harpootlian, in the middle of all this at about 10:30, says, hey, Judge Toal, I don't want Eric Bland sitting too close to the jurors. He's representing them. What is going on there as part of this entire media circus? Now you've got these feuding lawyers, and I'll probably get Eric on at some point this week, but what was going on there? These guys, is it just bad blood boiling over right now?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Jackson is barking all of a sudden. Jack, be quiet.
It's okay.
Yes, they so here's the thing. To have a lawyer, for example, when Eric was involved just simply because he was the lawyer for the Satterfields, right? That is understandable. The problem becomes when you become a lawyer involved in every single aspect of this case that you can be. And that's what we have here. We have a small Jack. Hold on one second.
This is awesome. Only on SGS do we break the show in order to give a dog a treat. My dog, by the way, Ethel's never in here. Ethel's Ethel's on my bed, so she could go crazy at any moment. This is a dog break. We should definitely be sponsored by a dog company. Like, hey Chewy, why don't you sponsor my show? Go ahead.
We really should, because yes, they are with me all the time when they can be. But it to see the and I know that I'm going to borrow one of Amy's words, but the jackassery that has developed amongst these male attorneys. I mean, there's just nothing, there's just no other way about it. They're just, for even Justin Bamberg to be involved in representing Becky, representing jurors, when you start representing people amongst different groups, when they're all still in the same thing, it's too messy. It's way too messy, and that's what we've got here.
Right? The spotlight's warm, and they like that feeling. That's what it comes down to.
I guess. I mean,
it's also their hate for each other has trumped the right thing somewhere along the way.
And what I think that does is I think that adds to the crazy chaos that becomes then associated with South Carolina law, because it's typically not like this. For example, if I am representing a defendant, right, then I anticipate in dealing with the solicitor, with the cops, with the lawyers for the cops who I'm trying to get records from, those kinds of things. But then to have all of these extraneous lawyers come in who are very tied to one side or the other. And that's what and that's what I just don't see. What Eric doesn't understand is that, and he's made these complaints before that Dick and Jim shouldn't be involved because they represented Paul, or they shouldn't be involved because of this, or blah blah blah. And it's just like, but now you're all doing the same things, and it's incredibly frustrating. But a lot of it is just egocentric at this point. They've all whipped out their tiny little peenies, and they're peeing on each other, and they're going to keep doing it every chance they get.
I'm going to get an email. I'm going to get an email from Eric Bland saying, "Did she say tiny?" He's going to be all worked.
I know.
Yeah.
And for the record, I have not seen any of the peenies, nor do I care to.
I'm not going to get hate emails. I'm going to get peenie emails. From KT here, and keep sending me the triple Qs. Number one, because I'm delirious. I have no idea what's going on. Number two, you've got a really smart panel here. So your questions. And number three, before I forget, because I will, tomorrow we've got Gigi McKelvey, who's in court, along with Neil Gordon, who is Becky Hill's co-author, who I have questions for because she admitted parts of the book are plagiarized, and he co-authored the book. He's coming on tomorrow. So we'll be discussing that at 5:00. But Gigi McKelvey is one of the best, and she's been covering this gavel to gavel from the beginning, and she was in court today. To you, Sarah, hope you're back with us. If Becky Hill was found to have influenced, and by the way, if you're on a phone and you can turn it the other way, that'd be excellent. Beautiful. Yep.
Sorry about that. My internet went out, and I'm just.
Nope. Perfect. Much better. I won't get yelled at by the COE now. Yes. If Becky Hill was found to have influenced more jury members just than juror Z, do you think the outcome would have been different, Sarah Ford?
Yes, I do. I think that if the credibility had been there, I think that if there had been additional jurors who said, yes, I heard that, yes, it did affect me. I think if maybe the substance of what they alleged she said had been stronger, it's, pay attention to the witnesses versus that witness is a liar, two very different things. I think that the outcome would have been different. I do.
Amy Zimmercheck, does Becky Hill need to be afraid? Look, here's the question, actually, in a different way. What happens to Becky Hill now from Ansley Cudd?
I mean, quite honestly, we all know she perjured herself. I think anybody who watched any portion of that would see that. B, I think that the judge making the making a finding, and these were the words that really caught me, is I do not find the clerk's testimony to be credible. That is problematic. Part of me wonders if in preparing, sorry, now he's just making himself a part of the, say hello, baby Finn.
I never thought of it. Honestly, we do need to be sponsored by Chewy, but go ahead. Steve Cohen, get on that. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I would try to yell at him, but I just can't. But in order for her to say that, I think is huge. I think that the state was protecting their verdict and getting through this hearing with her. However, I mean, the fact that a sitting pretty conservative Supreme Court justice found their witness to not be credible, and to know that we have all of these pending allegations on what she did or did not do, I think that, and this is what I don't understand, she's under investigation. The Fifth Amendment is there for a reason, and I don't know why she does not.
Because she knows you're not going to do anything, right? I mean, we had Creighton Waters, like him, nice guy, suborn perjury today because he's too busy trying to preserve his verdict and the spotlight, right? Instead of like preserving the system. And that's the most important thing to me. That's what should be the most important thing. The integrity of the system should be the utmost important. Like, we all think that he's the biggest piece of known to man, right? Murdaugh is the lowest of the low, the awfulest of the awful. I mean, he's killed his child, he's killed his wife, he's stolen not just from people, he's stolen from the least among us, he's stolen from paraplegics and little children and all those things, and he is the absolute worst. And all those things, and she will not be held accountable. That's why she could get up there and testify, because if they were to bring charges against her, then they would have to give her perjury credence, and then they would have to admit that they put her on the stand knowing all that stuff. And so the whole integrity of the system today got the big finger, is what I think. And I think even though we all hate Murdaugh and we all believe that he's guilty, we have to want to protect the system, because one day it could be you, one day it could be your mama, your brother, your sister, someone you know and love, and they deserve the fairness of a trial. And I hate to say it, but Murdaugh didn't get it.
By the way, this is my own observation. He literally it wasn't a non-reaction to what Judge Toal said. Like, he seemed like he was just enjoying the attention again and being out of prison. Like, it didn't seem like it impacted him one way. Like, he couldn't care less because he knows he's in there for the financial crimes. Like, it just didn't even seem, to me, it didn't even seem like it registered on his radar. Like, he wasn't in there worried about a thing. He was just like kind of having fun, looking around, enjoying the attention, enjoying being back in court, got to stretch his legs. It was so surreal to me that because every once in a while I sit back, I'm like, dude, you're in there because you killed your own son and your wife. And here we go. It's just, another judicial hearing for him. To me, it was a very weird non-reaction at the end. But
he was smirking on a field trip,
Don't tell you.
Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I'll tell you a couple of things. One, I've spent a lot of time in those prisons, specifically in the prison where he is, which I guess is still a secret, so we're not allowed to say. But it's awful.
You can say it on my show.
Any vacation or now there's talk here everywhere. Any vacation or opportunity to get out of that facility, trust me, I would be smiling as well. He, and he, in his own weird little mind, A, he's the center of attention again. B, there were a ton of people there that were just there to say hello, to gawk, to watch, or because they're Jackson, stop, or because they are somehow involved. But 3, and this is where I really believe it is, we had a heck of a time talking about his reactions, his comments, and lawyers know that. I assure you that there was a long come to Jesus meeting today. Every camera is going to be on you. You are not to react. You are not to laugh. You are not to, and I assure you, any good lawyer would have reiterated that over and over and over.
I think he knew. I think he knew they weren't going to do anything. I think he knows that they are so over him, and that he didn't have a chance in hell, no matter what anybody got up there and said. That's why he just looked at it as a field trip and an outing.
Sarah Ford, I'm just taking notes because I'm going to forget if I don't today, but Philadelphia shoulder surgeon brought up a good point. Forget this case. What about the other trials? I don't know how many she has been clerk of court, kind of presiding is not the right word because that's what a judge does, but over murder cases or other cases. The short answer is, do you have to go back and look at Becky Hill's other trials that she was involved with?
First, I would say no, and there are two reasons as to why. One, if you pull up the number of trials that they've had in Calhoun County that she's been the clerk of, I don't think that you're gonna find a terribly large number. But B, I think that this was all very specific, and I think and I've been very critical of Dick Harpootlian and his lawyering. This was some of the best lawyering that I've seen him do in this case. And I do now, minus all the extraneous.
I agree with you on that, Amy. I'll agree with you on that.
I do. I mean, now the smart comments of, well, are you writing another book? This seems like it'd be, that kind of stuff I can do without. But I mean, I think that we all ended up here because just of the nature of it and the book. I think to waste more, I don't know how many trials have been had in Calhoun County since she's been the clerk, but I'm telling you, it can't have been that many. And so, even if they had to go back and look at them, I don't think that would be fruitful either way.
By the way, the COE has pulled some sound, and if I don't play it, I'm going to hear it later. So we're going to play it in a second. But just to Sarah Ford on this, if today's ruling is appealed, won't this Judge Jean Toal, Toal, have more weight since she presided, ruled, and was assigned already by the South Carolina? She's a retiree of the South Carolina Supreme Court. So does this hold more weight coming from someone like her in an appeals process?
She's at the level of a trial court judge for this particular instance, but I mean, she's Jean Toal. I mean,
yeah. Does everyone in the state know her in the legal world?
Yeah, I mean, she is a force of nature.
Mother Toal.
Like she
Mother
is.
Toal.
I mean, an incredible. I mean, she's a former legislator who became a judge who's been on the Supreme Court. Was it like 30 years or something? Maybe it's even more than that. But just an incredible jurist, an incredible legal mind. I mean, she is. She's a living legend, and you saw that.
And
today.
a champion for women.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
she
was telling Poot to sit down in a different way than Carm said it to him at CrimeCon, but both were effective, and it was hilarious. Yeah, I think she was on the Supreme Court for, I think I read 27 years, if I read that correctly. Someone, by the way, is asking, are Pooty and Jim now working for Alec for free? I don't know where where the money's coming from. Let's watch this together. This is a piece of sound, and then we'll dissect it. And there's definitely more to get into here.
Verdict influenced in any way by the communications of the clerk of court in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And how was it influenced?
All right, so I'm just going to, obviously, let me just say, I didn't know what it was. So this is Judge Jean Toal. There she is, tough as nails, a legend, as you just heard these women say, in South Carolina. Alec is looking on, and this is Juror Z. This is the one who claims to have been influenced by Becky Hill. So she was the pivotal juror here.
Was your verdict influenced in any way by the communications of the clerk of court in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And how was it influenced?
To me, it felt like she made it seem like he was already guilty.
All right, and I understand that. That's the tenor of the remarks she made. Did that affect your finding of guilty in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
She asked, does that affect your finding of guilty? She says, yes, ma'am. Amy Lawrence Lovely, let's go around the horn on this one. That's pretty powerful. I mean, at that moment this morning, people are like, oh, crap, here comes a second trial. Here comes a new trial, right? Is that what you guys were saying when you heard that?
Yeah, my jaw went open, and I was like we were in our like lawyer chat group, like group text, like OMG, WTF, like exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. I think it's super powerful. I mean, she didn't just allude to it. She said it affected my decision. That matters. That testimony matters. And there's nothing that she has said that makes me pause to say that she is not being truthful. It takes a lot of guts to get up on the stand and say that. And you could, when she asked that question, you could hear her sigh like a yes. And I don't know. I think that matters. I mean, I believe people when they tell me the truth, that there's no other reason not to believe them, especially under sworn testimony. We're not talking about Becky Hill if they're given a different story with conflicting statements. I mean, I think that matters. I mean, the standard of review is, did Becky Hill say something that was inappropriate? And did it affect your decision? Yes and yes. So how did we get to where we were with no new trial? And I think it comes down to they're so over him.
Or 11 other people didn't support what Juror Z was saying. Like, I totally understand what you're saying. I totally
all the
respect
other witnesses did, right?
Okay, but they didn't though, Amy. Like, so let's back up, because if we watch the rest of that clip, she also asked about the evidence and how did you find that evidence? Did you base your verdict on the evidence? And she said yes. So she's answering yes to all of these questions that Justice Toal is asking. So for me, that's so it's like, okay, let me just talk for 1 second. So if we're looking at it that way, let's go back and look at what her affidavit said that she gave to Dick Harpootlian. And it said that she was influenced by other jurors. Do you actually think that Dick Harpootlian didn't ask her if she was influenced by what Becky Hill said? That would have been the first damn thing that he put in that affidavit that she signed. So I think for us to look at this as, oh my gosh, Juror Z here, now she's coming out with what, you know, Becky Hill actually did. That would have been in that affidavit that he filed months ago if that were actually the case. I think she's looking at it now thinking, okay, I was influenced by the jurors. Yeah, you're supposed to be, you're on a jury. But now she's had time to think about that. Yeah, maybe I am influenced by what Becky Hill said. But none of the other jurors came in there today and said, I was influenced. My verdict was influenced by what Becky Hill said. And that's the reason why there's no new trial.
So it takes 2 influenced jurors to matter? Is that what we're saying?
What I'm saying is there's a reason why we have 12 jurors. If that were actually true, we would have more than one person on there that would say, yep, I was influenced. But we've got one and nobody else is saying that, yeah, I heard that, or yeah, I believe that, or yeah, I was influenced by that.
Am I missing something? I heard testimony from Miss Rhonda, right?
Yeah.
Who was great. I heard testimony from the other juror.
You mean Miss Rhonda, who said that she heard that Becky Hill took a juror home, which the juror actually said didn't happen. She said that today. It didn't happen.
By the way, Miss Rhonda is, for those who are just tuning in, she's another clerk of court that they brought in, and she gave testimony, and she knew some of the stuff going on. But go ahead, Sarah.
But she says, I heard that she actually gave her a ride home. And, oh, you can't do that, Miss Becky. You can't do that. But she didn't tell the judge that? That was sus to me.
Yeah. Amy Zimmercheck. So they're, Sarah Ford's obviously talking about this, but can you just explain this a little bit to the lay people like myself? So Juror Z was brought in. This is obviously, again, the juror in question and all the other letters, MNOP, you name them. They all said that they were not impacted, but Z did say that she was impacted. And So juror Z is brought in by the judge and then removed because Creighton Waters, the state, wanted to ask the judge about the affidavit that the juror signed. So when is that affidavit signed? What did that affidavit say in opposition to what was being said in open court here? And why was that so important?
And to be quite honest with the affidavit, I would love to get a look at it, because I know that I don't think it was made a part of the record, which was it seemed a little confusing, because it seemed like when because I think Dick was maybe a little bit confused about some of it, and then the judge just started reading from the affidavit.
Well, the affidavit that affidavit goes back to juror 630. So everyone is obviously assuming that it's this juror 630. Yes, it's tied to juror.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what public records show it to be.
And so I think that well, I mean, obviously, I think it's problematic. I think that when they were running around getting these affidavits, they were, never been in this situation. So, I don't know that they specifically asked that specific, because I think at the time when they were arguing what the standard of review was, I think that it was any evidence versus it had to show prejudice. And so, quite honestly, it could just be an example of them not knowing exactly what to ask. And so, and for the, I think we all understand why why Justice Toal found Hill not credible. But I would like to know her reasons behind saying that juror Z wasn't credible. Was it just because it was, the difference in the statements? Which, I mean, because then I would like to know more about the statements. I would like to know specifically what she was, what they were looking for at the time. It concerns me, and I'll tell you, I am concerned because, I know that 11 other jurors said that it was not, or that they didn't think that it influenced their verdict. But it's so hard to be able to know at that moment what is and what isn't. And we have a jury of 12. And even if let's just say that she was influenced by improperly influenced by the other jurors versus, just and nothing that Becky said. But in order to, then, I mean, I think that still has a problem. And Sarah, I know you're like, but 11 others said this and that. But the problem is that we came to a decision as a country to say 12 men and women, and if one of those men and women, if one of those men or women in this scenario, if one of those women has decided that they wouldn't, vote that way, except for some improper influence, then the jury would hang, and and we'd have to do it all over again. So it is concerning that we're trying to almost lessen the standard to say, well, 11 people that we all believed, said this, when we know that at least 2 others saw her having conversations and were brave enough to admit it. What has me concerned is, A, are we not asking the right questions? And B, I mean, the media spotlight in general, just on this little issue. I mean, I think at this point, as a juror, I would be afraid. I would be starting to exercise my Fifth Amendment to just not say anything, because, here we are second guessing everyone. And I mean, it's I think that he's not going anywhere. I don't think we don't run the risk of him getting out of jail. I would love to make sure that the system gets it right. And I think that's where my concern is.
Sarah, just back to this affidavit. This was the one included. So this affidavit for juror number 630, I guess, is presumed to be juror Z, was the one that was included in the September 5th motion that was seeking this new trial, right? So this was really who Dick Harpootlian and company were pinning their
hanging their
hopes
head.
and their prayers on, right? And it's just that's why it was so important, and that's why Dick wanted to be able to question Jersey. But why did Judge Toal say no, it's not happening? Why did she say to Dick Harpootlian, you're not going to have that opportunity?
Well, I think if I can, I hate to do this, but I just want to go back to one thing that Amy said real quick. Like, it's not just about, one juror and 11. If that had happened, then it would have been a mistrial and we'd be retrying this case, right? We're talking about establishing and evaluating the credibility. And we have a witness that testified today whose testimony was ambiguous. And then you had 11 others who heard, 2 of whom heard Becky Hill say something to the effect of, pay attention to Alex Murdaugh when he testifies. Okay. Nobody else heard her say anything else. And none of those other people said that their testimony was or their verdict was impacted by that or by anything that Becky Hill did. And I think for us to discount that, it is really, I think that's the wrong move, because I think what we're looking at here is we've got to look at what actually happened. Were these jurors, were they influenced? Was their verdict influenced by Becky Hill? And here's the thing, Becky Hill's testimony today was it was insane, right? It was completely insane. The fact that she wrote a book and did all these things, crazy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that she went in there and tried to deliberately influence this jury. And I think from hearing from these jurors today, that's not what happened. And I think for us to discount that and just say, well, this one and we've got these 11, I think that's really, I don't think that's appropriate. I think we're looking at the wrong thing. I don't even know what the hell you asked me. Sorry. I just got off on a tangent, but
no, it was about the affidavit, and it's okay. But Amy Lawrence Lovely just pulled out the book, which, by the way, she revealed she made $100,000 off of that book, which is not the best written book. No offense to the BBC journalist that she plagiarized it from, by the way. Here's a question. We'll get into all that in a minute, Amy Lawrence Lovely. I wanted to come to you from Taylor Burton. Now, no one on Court TV or law, I guess more the traditional networks would ever even bring this question up, but everyone was asking this. Did someone pay her off? Is there a chance that it was such a, and not just Miss Becky, people are talking about Jersey too. Is there something about the Low Country, this small rural county in South Carolina, where things are happening this way because there's still corruption? Is there a reason to still be fearful of that there is something amiss?
On some level, yeah, I think, but I don't think this is not specific to small communities. I mean, we see this everywhere, in every community, in every courtroom, whether, it's up in Pennsylvania with the lady who they said killed herself. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, and I apologize. They said she stabbed herself 50 times in the back of the head.
Ellen Greenberg, Philadelphia.
That was a suicide. I mean, I think that's the whole point, is that this can happen in any community. But I think when you're doing the right thing and you don't have bad intentions, you don't have to lie about it, right? Doing the right thing is sometimes hard, but the truth is easy. And when we see Becky Hill get up there and not tell the truth, matter of fact, she was called out by it. She was impeached by not only Harpootlian, but the judge. And I mean, when you're doing the right thing, you don't have to do that. There's nothing to lie about. And I think that's the bigger problem here, is that we've got multiple witnesses all talking about this improper behavior. So what if she only said improper stuff just to Z, right? And this other lady who's the alternate, do we discount that because she didn't try to get all the other 11 or 12 jurors, including the extras, because she only targeted certain ones? I mean, this is the thing that we've got to ask ourselves. And if we bother to ask ourselves this because it doesn't make sense, then he should probably have a new trial.
But the worst of what they said that Becky Hill said what the worst thing that Becky Hill said, according to juror Z, is to pay attention to Alex Murdaugh on the stand.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem with Becky Hill is it's the cumulative little comments for 6 weeks. That's what I think. And then when you read her book and you hear her testimony, she didn't have any good intention with anything that she was saying.
But we're talking about what happened at the
words.
By the way, if you're a clerk of court, let's establish maybe the presidential candidates their platform should be no books for clerk of courts. That should be a platform. If you're a clerk of court in this country, you should not be writing a book. Colleen Clausen, Amy Zimmercheck, I'm in no way saying you said this, but can you just address this? Why did your guess, I have no idea who said this, it's probably me, that these small town South Carolina jurors didn't understand what they were actually being asked? I'm so insulted. Was that you, Amy Lawrence Lovely? What do you mean by that?
And what I mean is when all those things can be true at the same time, right? The evidence I can be pushed over the edge, right, by Becky Hill and her comments. I can also be persuaded by all those things are not mutually exclusive. And so to say that all three of those things are true is okay. And also, like, when you really think about what all that means to a layperson, it sometimes is very confusing. I mean, it's confusing as lawyers when you hear all those things put together. Like, they're not mutually exclusive. And I don't mean to be disrespectful because Lord knows I come from a very, very small town. Kids drove tractors to school, the boys, sometimes 2 days a week because they were working on their family farm. So I get it. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just saying that all this stuff plays into it. And it's a cumulative effect, not just one single thing.
Amy, I know you're going to find this shocking, Amy Lawrence Lovely, but I never drove a tractor to school in New Jersey, not once. Amy Zimmerchick, I did not mean to interrupt you, but maybe you can add to this too. Should Becky Hill be charged with misconduct or something? Will she ever be held accountable? But go ahead, Amy, with your thought and answer that too.
Well, to answer that part of the question, I think she will be. I think she will be held accountable. I don't know what that looks like, but I mean, I think that I don't know when her term is up, but I can't imagine that the voters in this circuit, want any more just stuff making them look like small town, bumbling idiots, which they are not. But also to address that, it's not a matter of being condescending to say they didn't understand. I have a ton of clients, English speaking and non-English speaking, and even when a judge, when they talk about their rights and you understand you have the right to remain silent and anything you say can and will be used against you. And then the judge asks them if there's been any coercion or threat. And they're like, no. And then I turn to my, client and I'm like, and what's coercion? And what's that word mean? And they don't know what it means and they can't explain it. And it's not because they're dumb. And in some cases it's because they lack that education, but also like coercion is not, that's a word that we use every day because we're so familiar with the Miranda warnings and the Fifth Amendment. But there are words that are just like everyday words, that, and even the word influence in my mind is subject to some, interpretation. And so one thing that I've learned, especially I just got out of a trial and in trying to, be fancy and speak like they taught us in lawyer school, to not, to do all these things when really it's just a matter of, and I think instead of saying did influence, did you vote guilty? I mean, I think to break it down even further, did you think that you should vote guilty because that's, everybody else thought it? I mean, I think there are different ways to break things down, to not make people look, I mean, and to not try to reiterate or just suggest that they're not smart because of where they live. But our world is, I mean, it's just like if you take me and you send me to an auto mechanic, they're going to be talking about things that make zero sense to me. And I am highly educated. So I think that maybe, you know, a lot of things that the jurors or just people in general maybe don't understand. It's just because of the way that we use words. And I hope that one day we can, you know, get better at doing that, because I think that causes a little more, you know, strife and trouble in our legal system than we realize.
I go to my fourth
Long-winded
grade,
answer, but
my fourth grader's math class, and I need a lot of help. So it's all relative. It's all relative. If Judge Toal was concerned about juror anonymity, why did she require jurors to testify in open court? I think she wanted a public record. This super sticker or chat, whatever you call it. Did you guys mention 3 jurors watched some of Juror Z's testimony on their phone while she testified? Well, if things couldn't get any even weirder, Sarah Ford, at 10:36 this morning, to be precise, Judge Toal comes back out and says, let me make fun of South Carolina a little more, because not only are we doing this hearing, and not only did I just grill Juror Z, but then I find out that they didn't take the other jurors' cell phones away, and they were watching court TV and heard all her testimony about what I was just going to ask them about. I just thought for sure that was, and again, this is what we were just talking about. I know nothing about this in terms of a real legal bearing. So I said, this is going to be a little mistrial here. Something just happened that's not kosher. Sarah Ford, why wasn't that more problematic that they were in that back room, not really sequestered, with cell phones, watching what was going on with Juror Z?
Well, I think
Crazy.
one reason, I mean, when that came out, I was like, holy hell, what is going on? Like, I had only had one Diet Mountain Dew by that point, and I was like, just give me an IV. Like, I'm going to need it today. You know, I think number one, that juror's affidavit was filed with the motion for a new trial. So I think that ultimately what she said was already out there. And B, I don't know if I said A or B, but the B part of that is the judge asked, did you see it? Did you look at it? And for the 2, I think it was 2 that said, yes, they did. One said that she had seen it on Facebook. It was like on a Facebook Live while she was opening Facebook. And the other one said he actually watched part of it. And she asked, did that influence the way you answered your questions here today? And he said, no. I mean, it's bonkers. You know, I think being a juror really is difficult. I would think after 6 weeks of not being able to use their phone, maybe that would have crossed their minds, but maybe not. Maybe they were just like, I never want to think back to that time again. But I think Justice Toal corrected that. You know, I mean, it wasn't like we could go out and get 12 other jurors who were in the Murdaugh trial. So you had to go with what you had to do. And I think she corrected it and asked them the appropriate questions for that. But it was definitely a bizarro moment. It was crazy.
Just kidding. I believe this is, I'm reading South Carolina here, not complete English, but South Carolina. Laws of mercy, as my grandma would say. Is that right, Amy Lawrence Lovely? This is a very tangled web we weave. That, of course, is from Alex Murdaugh. Another thing, I think this was just a lawyer being a lawyer, but of course, Juror Z had her own attorney there, a guy named Joe McCullough. By the way, is it true that I read somewhere in this chat that Juror Z is the egg lady juror's tenant? Does anyone know if that is correct? Or is that just someone messing with me? That's what
no, I think that's, I'm very good friends with Joe. I mean, no, I would.
You
No,
would know that. Okay.
Yeah.
You would know that. Okay.
But
Yeah,
there were
and-
allegations, though, that there was a juror
Okay.
that actually was on the jury pool that was a tenant of Egg Lady. So I don't know if that was her, but you know, I heard
I mean,
that.
how could I mean, just the fact that this case has someone named Egg Lady, I mean, there's no way that fiction could be crazier than this. There's just no way. But Amy Zimmercheck, this guy who's now a friend of yours, I didn't know, Joe McCullough, he tells the judge, I guess this was via email after lunch, tells Judge Toal that now Juror Z wants to enhance her testimony. I guess he had to send her an email to the judge And then Creighton Waters comes out. And by the way, I'm going to play that sound right now so I don't get in trouble. But Creighton Waters comes out and says there's no way the witness is getting a quote unquote second bite of the apple. It's like a biblical reference there, I think. And the judge agrees and tells your friend Joe to sit down. But let's listen to Creighton Waters and then break this down.
Who's given answers all over the place that are this juror who's given answers all over the place that are inconsistent with 11 other jurors who were very strong and unequivocal that yes, this was our verdict. It was based solely on the evidence, the law, and the testimony. That there were no communications from Becky Hill that influenced that verdict. And I think ultimately when you look at the case law, in the end, it's up to Your Honor to make that ultimate determination and looking at all that law together. We cited a number of decisions, including, as we discussed, the questions to be had. I sent an email where we set out some questions that it's not uncommon, perhaps, for a juror to have a second thought. But the law is very clear that it does not recognize that.
This is a long soundbite, so I'm going to stop it right there. Amy Lawrence Lovely. Creighton Waters has just a very, just a very good delivery, I think. A very sort of personable, down-to-earth delivery. And he's basically making his case for why this should not upend the whole case and why there should not be a new murder trial. Is he doing a good job here? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Creighton's very likable. He's a good man. You know, we all like him. Everybody likes Creighton. But like when I hear that, I hear, if you ever want to tamper with a jury, just only tamper with one juror. That's what I feel like that says. And then you if you only tamper with one juror, it's okay. But if you tamper with two, if somebody else can testify that happened, then we'll believe you. I mean, that's what I hear. And it's just crazy to me that I didn't think that Jersey was all over the place, because I think all those things are not mutually exclusive, that all those things can affect your verdict. But then we're going to put Becky Hill on the stand and she's going to perjure herself over and over and over and over again. And we're going to pretend like that's not really happening. It just didn't feel authentic and genuine, and it didn't feel right.
Amy Zimmercheck, I'm going to play the rest of the sound. Why wasn't Becky Hill just fired? Pat Ferguson wants to know. This is a question. Why wasn't she just fired? Why was it not as simple as that?
Well, I think that's probably coming down the pipeline.
Because she's elected.
Right.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, but she is elected, and I did see that her term is up this election year. So I don't unfortunately it's just not that easy.
Well,
I think that's coming.
The only way to remove her from office would be that she would have to be indicted. And then that would pull her out temporarily until a decision was made in the case. Until if she was convicted, then she could be, I guess, maybe impeached is not the word, but taken out of office. But it would require her being indicted. So until she's indicted, they can't remove her because she's an elected officer.
Do you think?
And the governor would have to step in.
Yeah, and Amy Zimmercheck, do you think that the state, and I mean collectively, is sort of embarrassed enough by this that they are going to do something or go after Becky now?
Well, I think yes is the answer. I think that and they've got enough other things, I think, pending in the background, which I don't see how that's not a conflict for the AG's office, but maybe that's a question for Eric Bland. But I just think that I think it's coming down.
The hammer's about to drop. Sarah Ford, let's listen to the rest of this and we'll get your take.
Because what that would do would be to consistently and constantly put every verdict that occurs in any courtroom in this state or in the nation at risk. Jurors don't have to vote in perpetuity. They vote on one day and one day only. And here, Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming that those jurors verdict was the product of honest deliberation, and the only bit of contrary evidence to that effect is from a juror who, frankly, not only said that it was purely the result of honest deliberation, but then has answers all over the place. And, Your Honor, I would say that the other 11 jurors are credible, they were strong, they were clear with Your Honor, and I think that ultimately that carries the day.
Sarah Ford, your take on that?
That's what I said. I mean, I agree with him. I totally agree with what he said. I mean, I certainly understand, like, I respect Amy, and I see that we have a very clear difference of opinion here. I mean, we're lawyers. There's always going to be somebody on the other side of that aisle that's going to disagree with you. Like, that's what we do. But, you know, I think what we're looking at here is the right result. I think what you know, Creighton Waters argued, you know, he has been, you know, so steadfast and, you know, has worked so hard. And I think he is a man of integrity. And I think that if there were, you know, evidence to the contrary that was substantiated today, I think that we'd be in a different situation. But I think with Jersey's testimony, it was inconsistent in my opinion. And I think it just wasn't, it didn't rise to that standard. You know, that doesn't mean, I mean, every defendant absolutely deserves a fair trial. Absolutely. But I think what we saw here today is the right result.
By the way, go ahead, Amy, but real quick, Becky Hill's son was arrested for wire tampering, I believe. You can get to what you're going to say, Amy, but do we know anything about where that stands, Amy Lawrence Lovely?
It's all still pending.
It is. Okay.
What I was going to ask is, so Justice Toal was very clear that she was limiting her questions to 5 questions essentially. And so by doing that, you couldn't dig deeper and figure out really what that meant for juror Z. And a piece of me feels like that was by design, because we really didn't want the real answer. We wanted to be short, sweet, to the point, and everybody move on.
Hold on. I just got to say this. Okay. So Amy, this is probably one of the last times. I mean, I'm not pushing anybody out of the practice of law here. I'm definitely not. But I mean, this is very high profile. They pull in Justice Toal to do this. Like, this is her on, I mean, someone, what did we say? Somebody.
By the way, she said she read every single page of this case file. I don't know how many pages there must. How many cases?
She did.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that. But what I'm saying is, we've got people in Australia. I mean, this is worldwide attention on this. She probably is not going to have the opportunity in another case to have this kind of be at this sort of level. Do you think that she's going to be like, I really don't care. Let me go ahead and just ruin the rest of my career that I have given 50 plus years of being a lawyer. And I'm just going to say, hey, who gives a crap? It's Alex Murdaugh. And we all, you know, we think he sucks. So I'm just going to only do 5 questions because I got a hair appointment at 4:30. Like, that's not happening.
I definitely don't think it was for a hair appointment, but I do.
Well, I don't either, but I had a hair appointment. So
I know, right? But no, I guess the question is
Your hair looks great, Sarah Ford. Go ahead, Amy Lawrence Lovely.
It does. I like it brown. My thing is like, why are we so afraid of just digging in and really figuring out the truth? Why is that a big deal? Why can we only ask 5 questions? Why? I mean, I get not wanting to ask about deliberation, right? That makes sense to me. That's an off limit, but why would we not ask more questions? Why would we not try to figure out what she means by that? Like, dig deeper, ask something more detailed, ask a lot more questions. But when we limit it to 5, when there's no rule that says we have to limit it to 5, it begs me to ask, why are we limiting it to 5? Why is the truth so limited? Why are we not digging deeper and trying to figure out what really happened? Because I think nobody wants to know the truth. We want to move on. We all want to move on.
Every time Amy Lawrence Lovely is on, I always say why for like the next 5 days, and people look at me like I'm crazy. Can't you go to jail for lying in an affidavit? But here, Amy Zimmercheck, I feel like she was telling the truth in the affidavit, but maybe tweaking the truth the other way, or maybe not. I don't know. But what is the repercussion, if any, for lying on a sworn affidavit?
Well, I mean, perjury in and of itself carries up to 5 years. So, and perjury is giving false testimony while under oath. However, not one juror is going to face any prison time, especially if it stops at this point. And so I mean, again, some people believe that she wants to, that she was, I don't know that her two testimonies were I don't know that one was a lie and one wasn't. I mean, and that's where I do think that, it's sort of, to go to Amy's point, it almost seems like the fix was already in. And I think that's what makes it so frustrating for, people who are in court every day fighting this, like every single day I can argue this one thing. In every trial I have, for example, for right now, I'm arguing an inference, and lawyers have been arguing this jury charge for years and years and years and years. And the only way that we can make a difference is to keep arguing it, so that eventually, the courts look at it and see, what the problem is. And I think that's the bigger concern here, is that, there's just so much fantastic information going on with this jury, and even more so with this clerk. And it just, I guess I'm with Amy, and I don't see the harm in trying to figure out exactly what the problem was. And I don't think that we've done that.
Yeah, just to put a bow on the Becky Hill testimony today. Of course, she is the clerk of court, who is at the center of all this controversy for writing a book and apparently witness tampering and telling jurors, or jury tampering and telling them how to think and feel. She testified about 1:38 in the afternoon today that she never had any improper contact with the jury or expressed any opinions about Murdaugh or the defense. She said that before Judge Toal. She said she just managed the jury's needs day to day and, quote unquote, gave them a pep talk. She did admit plagiarizing parts of the book, something I would never do in my book, although I did plagiarize my mother, because I quote my mother. And make sure you get the pre-order to that book. And then we heard from Rhonda McKelveen. She's a clerk of court in Barnwell County. I assume that's in Low Country as well. And she said that Becky Hill told her, don't be fooled by the defense evidence. So then you've got another clerk of court. Sarah Ford, what was the sort of importance of Judge Toal bringing in another clerk of court for that testimony?
Well, that's what Dick Harpootlian, he was using Rhonda McElveen to basically impeach what Becky Hill was saying. So I thought it was really interesting. I'm sure y'all caught this too, but I think he asked her, are y'all friends? And she's like, oh yes, we were friends. And he's like, wait, so you're not? And I was like, probably not after she testifies. I don't know what's going to go down there. But so it was Harpootlian that was trying to impeach what Becky Hill was saying. And I think, what Rhonda McElveen ended up testifying to was that she definitely heard Becky Hill say something to the effect of, you got to pay attention to the defense witnesses, and, made some comments, but she testified that it was either in Becky Hill's office or with just a couple of other people, not in front of jurors. So her testimony was interesting because she'd been a long-term clerk. I think she said 16 years she'd been a clerk, and Becky Hill had just been a clerk for maybe 2 years when this happened. But yeah, I thought that I didn't really buy a lot. I mean, I definitely believed what McElveen was saying. She was really humorous. It was a much needed humor break during the day, because it was whack. But what I thought was really interesting was she was talking about, oh, well, you can't do that, Becky, or you can't take the juror home, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. But she didn't ever go to the judge and say, hey, out of an abundance of caution, Judge, I just want to let you know, I heard that Becky Hill, the clerk, did this. I don't know if she did. I don't know if she didn't, but I just wanted to bring it to the court's attention. one would think someone with that level of experience would say, hey, let me just put it out there. I don't want the appearance of impropriety, whether it's improper or not. Hey, that's above my pay grade. I'm just pointing it to you, Judge. And that didn't happen. So that made me question a little bit of what she was saying.
Here's an STS poll that the COE did all over the poll game. Yes. Do you think Murdaugh should get a new trial? Yes, 24%. No, 66%. Undecided, 9%. The only voice that really matters is Judge Jean Toal, and she said, buzz right off Alex Murdaugh. No new trial for him. Sort of a moot point in a weird way. What a weird world that dude must live in. Again, he seemed unfazed to me today, and the guy is convicted, so I can say it. He killed his own son. I was hanging out with my son today, telling him to stay away from me because I got COVID. Alex Murdaugh probably would have breathed like a dragon on that son of his, that little horrible man. But anyway, it's a moot point because of these financial crimes. Someone had a question up, which I thought was interesting, which was, if you were Judge Toal, would you have had other questions that you wanted to ask of witnesses? Sarah Ford, have you given that any thought? Are there any other questions that jump out at you that you would have wanted to ask?
I thought that, she took in questions from the state and from the defense, and she kind of looked at all of that and cobbled together the questions that she asked, which is, what judges do when you're asking for jury charges. The state will present their jury charges, defense will, and then they'll say, I'm going to do that, I'm not going to do that. And I think that's what she did in an effort to make this less of the circus that we know the Alex Murdaugh universe is. It's always a circus. So I think that's why she limited to what she did. I think the question she asked got to the point of what the standard was. And I think, could we have asked 15 questions, 25? Sure, we could have, but I don't know that would have made any difference in what we saw today. I don't think it would have, based on the answers to those 5 questions. I mean, it was pretty clear.
I would like to take this moment to congratulate Space Coast, our fearless West Coast technology leader, the man who handles everything and puts everything out on the podcast side as well. He's an audiophile. He's a music expert, a sports lover. The guy knows everything about the Grateful Dead, but most importantly, his San Francisco 49ers are going to the Super Bowl. Here it is. Look at this. Bang, bang, Niner gang. That's it. I guess that's what they say up there in San Francisco. Bang, bang, Niner gang. They are going. It was a close call. One of my best friends, Space Coast, is from Ann Arbor. And I was torn between you two. But I'm happy for you. And I cannot wait to see what Taylor Swift wears to the Super Bowl. That's all I can say. My daughters are ecstatic that Taylor Swift is going to the Super Bowl. There was a comment just up there, and I guess we'll close out with something along these lines. But let me first thank the guests in order. Normally, I'm a lot more smooth than I was just now. But Sarah Ford, she served as legal director at the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network since 2017. She's done it all, a former South Carolina prosecutor. And are you hosting a show these days, Sarah Ford? Are you doing a show these days?
I am. I took a break, but I'm hosting Stepping Toward Justice. So you can find that wherever you get your podcast, or you can follow me on Twitter, Sarah A. Ford ESQ. But thanks for having me. Get some rest.
Yeah, Sarah A. Ford ESQ, Sarah A. Ford ESQ. And if you want to follow us about showtimes, and by the way, we are looking to get Mark Garagos on Wednesday, but if Meave Moen is listening, and Mark Garagos is a busy guy, so if he's not going to be able to make it, maybe we get Eric Bland on, who's also a very busy guy. But I think we can talk about some of the juror issues with Eric Bland. So I'm talking about it on camera, but I'll talk about it off camera as well with Steve Cohen. But Sarah Ford, the question was along the lines of, has this whole thing given South Carolina a black eye, and what can be done to repair that black eye? over time if it needs some ice?
I think that's a great question. I think that anytime when the justice system or legal system, lawyers, judges, whoever are put, under the microscope, and we find out that we don't like what we see, I think that, that definitely gives us a black eye. It's not good, but I think we cannot change what we do not face. And I think by looking at what has happened with the Murdaugh trial, by seeing the issues that we're talking about, obviously you have three, lawyers in South Carolina that disagree with each other, but certainly respect each other and respect the work that we do. I think that we've got to talk about these things. We've got to examine these things and say, hey, we can do better. I'm not defined by the work of any other lawyer in South Carolina other than myself, the work that I do. But I think that our legal community is stronger because of what we've seen here. I think that people will be working to improve, certainly, to be more transparent. I know that Amy think that today was not a lesson in transparency, but I think that we will come out stronger. And I think that there's always, sometimes you got to look under the hood, and sometimes it ain't good. You got to fix things. And I think that we will. I think that we are. And I'm proud to be a South Carolina lawyer, no matter what.
Ned Smith, we love you, South Carolina, which is sort of funny because Tiff Knox says this case gave South Carolina a full body cast. And normally I would expect Ned Smith to say that. So even STS Nation strong, they are commenting in ways that I would expect the others to comment. So by the way, since I'm in a COVID fog and I have no idea what's going on and everything is blurry and weird, let me just say this, an emotional plea. Every day is a gift. It really is. I complain way too much. I got to stop. And health is wealth. You drive around Miami, Amy Lawrence Lovely, and you see Ferraris everywhere, and you see those Chanel bags, and you see all the fancy bags, and you see all the fancy cars, and you see all the fancy lip injections and the butt implants. But you know what? At the end of the day, Amy Lawrence Lovely, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. You have nothing in this world, Amy Lawrence Lovely. And I don't want to get teary-eyed on you, but enjoy your day. Enjoy your health. Enjoy your children. Enjoy your husband. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your law firm, the lovely law firm. And what are your final thoughts? And you have to unmute yourself. That I can enjoy.
Sorry, guys. I don't know. I know it sounds silly. I just want better. I want better for everybody. I want better for the system. I want better for defendants, better for prosecutors, better for judges. I just want better. I think we all deserve better as citizens, not just in South Carolina, but everywhere. Like this kind of stuff, whether it's Murdaugh stealing money or, hurting his family or Becky Hill, with all these things. It's just everybody deserved better in this situation. And it's terribly disappointing because these are people that we kind of put on pedestals in life. They're attorneys and clerks of court, and they all just kind of let us down. And, if I'm not fighting for anything else, I'm just like fighting for the integrity of it, because I really love being a lawyer. I love helping people. Nothing makes me happier. I get up excited about practicing law every day, most every day. And I just I think we can all do better, and I want better.
Very well said. This is sad and uplifting. Air dry. So true. I was coded and resuscitated 2 years ago, and 8 days ago today, counting every day. Happy that you're with us. I have a friend that happened to. He's no longer with us. He survived, but then I don't want to get too depressing here. Eric Bonomo, great show, guys. A young lady in the gray looks like the daughter from Married with Children. I think that's Christina Applegate, right? That's who he's talking about.
Nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. Thank you.
How do I feel about this comment? I love when people say this to me. Joel, please take care of yourself. You look unwell. I tweeted out, I look like death, and they were like, you look horrible.
Too. That doesn't help uplighting.
Oh yeah. You know what? You sound like my wife. My wife's like, why are you lighting your double chin? Why are you lighting your double chin? By the way, shout out to the COE. She and I have been, by the way, there's that show that it's the #1 most streamed show in America right now, True Detective on HBO. It's interesting and weird. Wendy Woobles. I love the last name. Thank you. Damn you, COVID. Thank you. I appreciate that. We've been watching True Detective on HBO. It's interesting with Jodie Foster. Long story short, it freaks my wife out, and she has to hold both ears and not listen. And I sit there and watch. But that's been the last couple of nights. Thank you, Lindsay Shea. Last one up, Amy Zimmercheck. She's a lawyer's lawyer, a criminal defense attorney. She gets not guilty pleas for her not her attorneys, and her attorneys, I guess. Do you represent attorneys as well, Amy Zimmercheck? Yeah, you do. What are your final thoughts here, Amy Zimmercheck? Is there still hope for the Palmetto State to see another day of glory?
I live, I breathe. If there's not hope, then I'm moving. In fact, I get very emotional because, you know, as much as I win cases, I lose some too, and it's hard. But three things I want to say. One, Joel, thank you for struggling, because I know that you've been not feeling great, and we appreciate you keeping us all on task. Two, you were talking about watching on HBO. I would suggest too that everybody go check out American Nightmare on Netflix. And people always ask me why
Amazing
I do what
show.
I do. Why I do what I do, and the answer is there. Three, the last thing is, you know, I hope, especially when when I see Sarah and Amy, especially going at it, I have a little less fight, but only because I'm still trying to catch my breath from last week. It was a tough battle, but I'll tell you, it gives me hope that there are, that there are lawyers in this state, especially amongst the three of us, and many more, that don't like to see what happens to our system, not just in this state but all over. And I think that it's it's so important, and people, so easy to make a determination when it's on the outside and when it's not affecting you, but even more so when it affects you in your life. I think you become aware of how serious these little rights that we take for granted can be affected. And as long as I know that the three of us are going to keep fighting for it, yes, I hope that there is still hope.
And American Nightmare, I told Carm to watch it. It is a very interesting documentary, and it goes to show you exactly why you have to have criminal defense attorneys in this country, whether you love them or hate them, but they have a very important job. So thank you to these three amazing women. A spirited debate. I know that Sarah Ford and Amy Lawrence Lovely are going to make up and hug each other and love on each other after this show. There's no hatred there at all. And until then, love you, America. And of course, love y'all in South Carolina. What do I have to say? What do you say to someone? If someone's not feeling well in South Carolina, what do you say? Get better.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart, Joel.
So you could say it that way, in like a real way.
I can say it in a real way all the time. Yeah.
So if I'm like Sarah Ford, I feel horrible. You're like, bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Do you need something? Do you need you need a little something? Yeah. You need to take to the bed, Joel. That's what we say. Take to the bed.
What is it?
I'm getting to the bed right now.
Starve fever, feed what is it?
Feed a cold?
Yes. You feed a cold and starve a fever.
That's what I'm doing right now. Love you, America. Love you, South Carolina. Love you all.
Thank you, Joel.